Morning, Will.
Good morning. Morning, Saul.
Morning, Will.
Hey, before I forget,
Hi, David.
let's David and Saul and I stick around afterward and talk about
Okay.
other presentations that I think you both sort of volunteered to sort of do. You're muted, David.
Yeah.
There
And
you
at
are.
some point, we'll get it sort of sorted out.
Yeah.
Got a slightly irreverent Christmas joke. In
Maybe
Bethlehem.
you shouldn't tell it then.
Well, fortunately, only 4 people are on here.
And that makes it right.
In Bethlehem, they planned to name the baby Irving, but then Mary got her first major contraction. I just tell them, I don't explain them.
Oh, I got it. Anyway,
And I won't tell it again.
Okay. Anyway, Hank, I was going to say, I looked at the 2 videos you posted from last week since I wasn't around. The first, very concise, very straight to the point, Excel count functions was very good. And the one you posted afterwards, I did learn a keyboard shortcut I wasn't aware of entering the current date in a cell with the control semicolon, something like that.
Yeah. That works in a lot of places.
Yeah.
You know, when I was looking at Excel, I wanted to count the number of X's in a column. And normally it shows up down in the lower right corner, something about the count shows up automatically. But then I looked at it and it wasn't there. So I don't know if there's some setting that I have to make it show up. But anyway, I tried the count A. Is that it? Anyway, I couldn't get the right number to come up.
Count A does non-blank cells.
Yeah. And it didn't come up. What do I do? Count A and then give it the
range.
Column range?
The range of cells.
Yeah, you have to select the range. It'll tell you what's in that selected range.
Yeah, it's like doing a sum. You're summing a range of cells.
Yeah, I thought I did that, but
yeah.
And that goes in parens, I presume.
Yes, just like a sum.
Just count A and then parens and the range. Okay.
Wait until Willie gets here.
No,
he's the expert.
So stupid. I should be able to figure it out. I just tried it and I couldn't make it work, and I didn't figure out what the hell was going on. But anyway.
But getting back to your original question of X's, were there cells with X's and then blank cells, and that's all that was in that column?
That's all that was there, yeah.
Oh, so you just want to count the number of non-blank cells. It could have had anything in them. It didn't have to be X's. Yeah. Count A equal count A, open paren, range of cells, close paren.
Okay. Enter. Sounds pretty straightforward. I don't know why I couldn't.
Just like doing a sum equals sum,
I know.
paren, same thing.
I couldn't make it work for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, try it again.
Yeah. Meanwhile, not only porch pirates, but apparently in La Jolla, there's a lot of car break-ins going on.
Oh, I expect that's all over. I mean, there's websites to track crimes, and they list the different types, whether it's assault or burglary.
Well, porch pirates apparently is like almost 15% of the United States. That's a large number.
Well, sign of the times, I guess.
Yeah. Good morning, Dan.
I have a question for this August group.
It's only December.
The August group, August. If you wanted to run a background check, not a credit check, but a background check. Is this person honest, non-creepy? Where would you start?
Yeah, you have to pay money for it though.
Yes? Where?
Just put in your friendly background check and about 25 of them will come up.
In the old days, they were using private eyes.
Yeah.
Just
No,
type
there's a
You
bunch
could
of them
probably
out
still do
there.
that, couldn't you?
I think they charge about $50 or something to do it now.
if you
But-
just type the name in Google, you'll come up with a lot of choices at all these places that Will is talking about, offering different services, but most of them want money, like he says.
Yeah. And they'll do a criminal background check for you too.
So Will, if you wanted to have a quick example of how to count the X's, I put up a little Excel spreadsheet and I can share that and I can talk to it.
Okay. Yes,
Okay, you see that there? So
you have COVID. How'd you find that out? They call?
Send me paper.
Okay,
I go Mexico, I close the room, I spray my whole room.
okay,
And I say the virus going out. Okay?
okay. See you when? Monday?
Monday.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mhm. So Will, on my little shared spreadsheet there, I have a cell, and in that cell, it says count A from D10 to D10. So when I highlight that, it shows me, oops. Control Z, there we are.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, Control Z. Control Z, there we are. Okay, I'm gonna do count A, C-O-U-N-T, count A of, and then I pick a range of cells
Okay. And close. All right,
and do that. And so now in that range, there's 4 X's.
sure. Okay,
Now there's 5 X's.
all right, gotcha.
Now there's 4 X's. There's still 4 non-zero things, because that's what it's counting, non-zero. If I just do it, if I get rid of it, then it's 4. But
Yeah.
all I did in that cell, it just says count A and I give it a range.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I was just talking to our housekeeper. She just informed me that she has COVID. So
Was she wearing a mask?
yes, she was wearing a mask and leaving to go to
Good.
Mexico. So she said she sprayed her room with something. I don't know what she sprayed it with, but hopefully
How
the
did,
germs just stay in one place.
how did she know? Did she get an antibody?
Well,
test or
actually,
something?
she went to ER last night. She didn't
Mhm.
know what was wrong with her. And
And tested positive there, I
yeah,
see.
apparently. So that kind of, well, fortunately, she and her son are leaving for Mexico right now. But I'm not going to go
Yeah.
back into her room and
Yeah, just close that door
take
for a few days.
deep breaths.
Put the yellow caution tape up. Do not enter.
Hey, there was a helicopter flying over Mission Bay earlier this morning with their loudspeaker on, saying this is a police helicopter. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but
Right.
they were saying something.
Yeah,
So
it's
I don't
very
know what
hard
was
to
going on.
understand
Yeah,
what they say when they're flying around like that.
but it is a very loud loudspeaker.
Yeah, but it also sounds sort of like announcements on subways and stuff. It was like,
Yeah.
it's like, what did you say?
Yeah.
Hey, Will, while we're waiting, I have a question for you. Are you going to renew the malware bites, that bulk bunch that you got last year?
Yeah, I can. If we have-
Mine says I used one of them, and mine says it expires in 12 days or something like that.
Okay, I think I got a notice like that too.
Okay.
Who else got one? David, did you get
Yeah,
one?
I think I got two. Yeah,
You got two? It seems to me you got five with
yeah, but you know,
1, 2, 3, 4. So I think Pat got the fifth one. I'm not sure. I'll check with her.
5 or 8. I was thinking you had 8 of them, but anyway.
Was it 8?
Anyway, if it's still available, I'm available.
Sure, okay. All right, I'll sign up for it and get a bunch and notify people.
yes, please.
It didn't cost that much. I wanted end up being cost
Oh, it was $8 as I
$8.
recall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot cheaper than they want
Yeah.
30 or something for a single.
Yeah, it was a good deal.
All right, I'll check that out. Hey, by the
Thanks.
way, I got a notice from Scripps saying that they apparently had an invasion of their database, and they're
Oh, I got
giving-
one of those. Yeah, I was just reading
So
it.
did I. Yeah.
and I just signed up for it this morning, and you get the $100 without claiming anything.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
have a volunteer who's kind of funny. He's an unusual individual, but he started replying to all of those class action suits, and he's actually making more money than when he was working. Because you don't have to even be a part of it. It's the same thing as that Scripps thing. He just signs them and sends them in, and he gets paid.
Yeah.
He said that the majority of those things don't get, they don't pay out as much as they have allotted for it. So they're more than
Yeah.
happy to just pay it out.
Well, the lawyers love it. They get paid for everybody that
Exactly.
signs up.
That's right. So they're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have an incentive to to incentivize us to
Exactly.
make claims.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that thing about the Marines in Cape Lejeune and
Oh, gosh, that's
The
crazy,
June-
though. I'm so tired of those ads, though.
yeah, but there must be a lot of money out there for that because there are a lot of law firms that are pushing it.
And you don't have to have much. I mean, you only have to have lived in the area for 30 days.
Yeah.
Hank,
Yeah,
would you like me to record this in case you get knocked off?
yes, please.
Thank you.
Hank, what's your weather like there?
A little cool. We had a huge rainstorm and windstorm about 5-6 days ago that blew so much stuff down into my pool and yard, and
Oh, gee, yeah.
what a mess.
Did it help with Mauna Loa?
Mauna Loa quit. Mauna Loa and Kilauea both quit at the same time.
Interesting.
They're just having a rest. They'll be back.
Yep.
By the way, I talked to Louise Gillingham the other day. She's doing great.
Oh.
Now, I didn't think she was quite there, but her birthday comes up in March and she'll be 100.
Wow.
But
Wow.
she's still going out with her family and having a great time. So, and for Christmas, she was going to spend, with one day with the grandkids and another day with her own kids and that kind of thing. But she said to tell everybody hi.
Great. Thank you.
That is neat.
Marilyn Carr's not doing so well. She's in a assisted living place up in Marietta, I believe. And I was able to talk to her. We had a short conversation, but you can tell she's not quite the same old Marilyn Carr.
I guess Louise is the only person I know over 100 or about to be.
She's just amazing. And she still goes down for her meals and it still complains because the food is so bad. Now the chef cooks her meals. She gets breakfast brought in. She gets 3 eggs because the cook does whatever they can to keep her happy.
Well, when I hear stories like that, is that you may not like the food, but it seems to be doing okay for you because you're still here.
And actually though, she takes the food and makes it. She's very healthy. So, she takes advantage of what they do have. She just doesn't like the taste.
Saul, did you hear from the bank?
I have not.
Interesting, because it's over a week now that I talked to them. Okay,
I was going to bring it up, but
yeah, I can call. Let's see, Monday is a legal holiday, I think.
Yes.
I'll try to call Tuesday and see what's going on. Okay. Make a note. Oh, Tuesday.
Oh, it's past 8:30 and we're only up to 9. That's my fault. I didn't get the notice out until last night. don't
I
know
think a
what-
lot of people are busy getting ready for tomorrow.
Yeah, that's probably
think
true.
so.
There's all sorts of things that are not happening. My treatment mornings, all of a sudden, there's no traffic on the road all this last week.
The only place I saw traffic yesterday was in the supermarkets as people were trying to buy stuff to make
Exactly,
Christmas.
yeah.
And I see Willie's joined us with his smiling mug showing to us.
Is yak. I think it's a yak.
We like that face better.
Morning, Willie.
Morning.
So Willie, you explained that your logo there was not a yak. Can you tell us what this fellow is?
Yeah, it's called a Highland cow. It's kind of native to the Shetland Islands and whatnot. Well, I don't know about native, but in Scotland, when I was there, it was probably 15 years ago. We were just on a hike and they were in a pasture. So that was a little close-up picture of his face.
Those horns are kind of pointy.
Yeah. They
Looks
just,
like
they're, I mean, you can't see the whole thing, but they're shaggy all over. I mean, their hair hangs down to the ground. So it's just
Yeah.
an interesting face.
It looks like those horns could do serious damage.
Yeah. I don't know. It's sort of the Texas Longhorn / woolly mammoth combined.
There you go. Go back to the mundane.
I think we could start because I don't think we're going to get very many.
I don't think so either.
Well, I don't usually start until at least 8:35.
But I think that's a big mistake because a lot don't come on because they know you're going to wait. I've experienced that before.
Yeah, everyone knows when they need to show up as opposed to when you tell them to show up.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Yeah, but I know in my house there's a whole lot of kitchen activity going on right now, and last minute baking presents being made.
I think that's true in a lot of households right now. You can only put it off so long.
Well, yeah, there's some things that when you're baking you can't pre-do them, and it just doesn't work
That's-
well.
That's exactly right.
My wife has her experiment this year is something called panforte, which is a medieval, very, very dense cake with dates and nuts and cinnamon and cloves. And it's, we just had a sample this morning and it is delicious. But
Well, that sounds good.
yeah. But you
That
take
sounds-
a tiny little slice.
Sounds like what we used to call Christmas pudding, I think.
Oh, no, it's not a fruitcake. It's got the base seems to be half of it's like chocolate or whatever it is that goes in there as well. And but
This was wrapped in a cloth and
Yeah,
and
you,
fried up at the top and then boiled,
Right.
as I remember.
yeah, no, this is quite different, but yeah, yours is a Christmas pudding, and they will. Yeah, that's something that you're supposed to start making several months ahead of time, so to let things ferment a little bit.
My late wife used to make fruit cakes for Christmas, and they ended up being doorstops. But it was a lot of work, and I don't think people really appreciated them. Maybe some people did. I wasn't one of them.
You have to make the fruitcakes about 6 months ahead of time also.
And then liberally dose them with rum.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what makes them good. The more rum, the better.
throw the fruitcake away and just keep the bottle.
About once a week, you pour a shot of rum on top of it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, we had a housekeeper when I was young, and she made something, and she called it tipsy pudding.
It's a good name.
Well, Will, we haven't changed from 10 to anything else. So when you're ready, Will.
Okay, let me bring up a YouTube, and we'll get started. Just a minute.
I'll mute everybody and
Interesting. Okay, there's the screen.
okay, you are muted, Will. Like everybody else.
Am I unmuted now? No, I'm
Yes.
still muted.
You were a moment ago. Now you're back to being microphone muted.
You're muted, Will.
I can't seem to find it. Let me go open it up again. I don't know why it goes away. I have it up on the screen, and it goes away.
So when you go to your web browser, it's not there.
Well, let me go to my web browser and see why it's not there.
Worst comes to worst, just post the URL. One of us will play it.
Yeah, I can. Here it is. Okay, now if I go back to. Now I got to get back to the Zoom meeting again.
Do you
No?
see the Zoom icon on your Windows taskbar?
Yeah. Okay, I see it, right. Okay, now I can get back to it. Okay, now I've got it up, and it still doesn't want to show it in the options of the
Share
things that
screen
I.
options.
Hmm?
The share screen options.
Yeah, it doesn't show up there.
That's strange.
That is strange.
Maybe if you close the share screen window and reopen it, now
Yeah,
that
let
you
me-
have it,
okay.
it'll show up.
All right, let me try that. No, it still doesn't want to show up for some reason.
Can you do as David said, just copy the URL from the web browser and post it in the chat?
Yeah, let me do that. That's weird, very weird that it doesn't. Okay, here. If I post it in the chat, what does that do?
It allows one of us to copy it and run the video from our end.
Okay. It sure is up on my screen now. Now I got to get back to the Zoom meeting and let me look just one more time because I've got it up on this. I found it. It finally showed up. Okay, now we got it. And we got to share the sound and share. Okay, do people see
Yes,
our friend Kevin?
there's Kevin.
We do.
All right. All right, let me get it started.
If you can make it bigger, it would help. Like press the
All right.
letter T or full screen. That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
You can.
Hey everyone, Kevin here. Today I want to show you how
Okay, is this showing up okay?
Yes,
Looks
Yes.
good.
you can use Microsoft Access. So many of you have requested this video in the comments, so here it is. Also, I wanted to do this video as well because I kind of have a soft spot in my heart for Microsoft Access. When I first met my wife, we were both working at Microsoft at the time and she was on the Microsoft Access team, so I really felt like I had to do this video. Now, you might be wondering, what is Microsoft Access? It's a relational database program. And as we jump into this video, we'll find out more about what that even means. But at a very high level, you can use Microsoft Access to track customers, to track orders, to track assets. And the list goes on and on of the types of things that you can use or track with a database. Now, one of the first questions you might have is, why would I use something like Access? I could just enter information into an Excel spreadsheet. Why would I ever need to use a database? I'm in Microsoft Excel here, and sure, I can track information here as well. Let's say I want to track orders for the Kevin Cookie Company. I have customer information over here on the left, and then I have the order information over on the right-hand side. So this works too, right? Well, actually, it's not really that efficient at tracking this information. Let's say that maybe Bill comes in and he really loves our cookies, so he placed another order. So I want to enter another row with his new order. So here I'll take all of this customer information, I'll paste it down here, and then I'll enter in the additional order details. Now, this is what's referred to as a flat file. There are no relationships between this data, and it's really inefficient. So here you'll see now that I've had to copy Bill's data from up here, and I've had to paste it in again. So right now I'm carrying his data twice. With a database, you don't have to do this. We could set up different tables for the customer information and a different table for the order information. Also, with an Excel spreadsheet, you're limited to just over 1 million rows of data. And so if you have more data than that, well, unfortunately, Excel won't be able to handle that. Also, if I go back to all of the order information here, if I want to extract interesting insights from this data, maybe I want to write a query, and I can do a little bit of that with Excel. I could filter the different columns, I could insert a pivot table, I could try to manipulate the data to get an interesting view, but sometimes you just need to be able to write a query and then to pull together a report. And unfortunately, that's not that easy with Excel. So that's where databases win out. All in all, Access is a fantastic tool for individuals or for small businesses that need to track things. However, if you're, let's say, a mid-sized company or even a large company, you'll probably start to realize some of the limitations of Microsoft Access. And to be totally fair, when I worked at Microsoft, I was on some teams that used Access just as a really quick and simple database. If you're a larger company, you'll probably look at other options like Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, MongoDB, and the list goes on and on of solutions that are more scalable. However, what I will say is Microsoft Access is a fantastic tool to learn the fundamentals of database design. To learn the fundamentals of database design, in this tutorial, we're going to build our own database today, and you're welcome to follow along. You know, I've been meaning for a long time to create a database for the Kevin Cookie Company to track our orders, and this seems like the perfect opportunity. Yes, I did figure out a way once again to incorporate the Kevin Cookie Company into a video. We'll start off by creating tables. Then we'll go ahead and create an order entry form. This way other people can come in and add data to our database. Then we'll write a query so we can extract interesting insights from our data. And then at the very end, we'll create a report so we can share some of those insights with others. With all that said, by the end of this video, you should have pretty good working knowledge of how Microsoft Access works. All right, well, enough talk. Why don't we jump on the PC and let's start building our very first database. To get started with Microsoft Access, go ahead and launch the application, and that'll drop you on the start page, or right here, what's also referred to as the home view. Right here at the top, you can create a new database. We can start off with a blank database, and in a moment we'll do that. Over on the right-hand side, you also see a whole bunch of different templates. If there's a template that matches what you're trying to do, this could help you save a little bit of time, and you can go in and just tweak it. There's also a massive collection of templates that you can look at by clicking right here. Down below, you can search for different databases you might have worked on in the past, and here you can see all of your recent databases. One of my favorite features, when you hover over, right here you'll see a pin icon. When you click on this, this will add it to the pinned view, so this is just a quick way to get back to the files or the databases that you use most often. Okay, to get started, let's go back up to blank database and let's click on this. This opens up a dialog where we can type in a file name for this database, and I'm going to call this Cookie Orders. And if you want to follow along, feel free to give it the same name. I'll leave it in the default location right here in Documents, and next let's click on Create. This now drops us into a new Access database, and congratulations, you've now created your first database. There's not much here yet, but don't worry, we're going to go through step by step how to build this out. And before we jump in, I do want to orient you to the experience and just talk about some very, very basic database terminology. Over on the left-hand side, we can see that Access created Table 1, and we're going to start building out Table 1 first. And like I said, I want to track customers and orders for the Kevin Cookie Company, so we'll use Table 1 to track the customer information. So we're going to keep that separate from the order information. Also, over here on the right, if you've ever used Microsoft Excel before, this probably looks familiar. We have all of these different cells. The terminology here is a little bit different. In Excel, we refer to these as columns and we refer to these as rows. In Access, it's a little bit different. We refer to a column as a field, and then a row is referred to as a record. So we're going to be adding records to our database. Let's get started now by adding some fields to this table. Now up here, the first field is referred to as ID. And once again, I want to use this table to track all of our customer information. ID on its own isn't that descriptive. I want to update it to be customer ID. To update the name, you can simply double click on the field, and then here I can type in my own value. I'll type in customer ID, and that looks good now. Once I'm done typing that in, hit the tab key and that'll bring you over to the next field. And here, first off, you need to choose the data type. The data type defines what type of data you're going to insert in. For this, I wanted to track customer information. So this is going to be things like the customer's name, the first name, the last name, the email address, the phone number, and all of those pieces of information or all of those fields will simply be the short text data type. However, later on when we get to the order sheet, we're going to add numbers, and so we'll select a different data type. As you're entering data, feel free to look through all of the data types to see if one of these best matches the data that you want to enter. For the first field, I want this to be the first name, so I'll select short text. Now, it's called short text, but it allows up to 255 characters, which is actually a pretty good length. So it'll capture all of the different fields that we want to insert into this table. If you want long text, that allows it to go much, much longer, but once again, short text should be sufficient. I'll select this. Once I select that data type, now I can type in the name for the field. I'm going to call this first name. Once I finish typing that in, I'll hit tab, and here I can select the data type for my next column. And for this one, this is going to be the last name, and I'll go through and add all of the different fields for the customer tracking table. I've now added all of the different fields to this table, and if you're following along, feel free to pause this video and you can then enter in all of these different fields. The data type for all of these is short text. At the very end, I want to add one additional field, and this one's going to be notes. So let's say maybe a salesperson for the Kevin Cookie Company comes in, they add a customer, and maybe you want to include things like the customer's kids' names. There's nothing like remembering the customer kids' names to close a deal. Or maybe you want to include other information like the customer's birthday, all that type of stuff. And this might be a little bit longer than short text. So here I'll click over here, and instead of going with short text, I'll go with long text. And for this field, I'll call it notes. This should now include all of the different fields that we want to include as part of this customer table. Now that we've entered in all of the different fields, I want to show you how you can go back and make edits to these. So let's say you enter something in, but maybe you screwed something up or you want to change the text. Right here, I could click on one of these field headers and you can very quickly update the text. Also, when I click on one of these field headers, right up here, that opens up the fields ribbon. And right here, I can always go back and modify the data type. So just because you choose a data type doesn't mean you're locked in on it. Right down below, I can also adjust the width of these different fields. And here, if I right click on one of these field headers, it opens up a context menu where I can do all sorts of things. For example, I can hide fields. I could also unhide fields. Here you could freeze fields. If you've ever done that in Excel before, it's the same exact concept. And right down here, I could insert a field. Let's say I want to insert something between email address and phone. I can do that. I could also rename here again, and I could delete fields. So all types of different actions I can take to make sure that the table has the structure that I want it to have. Now that we've gone through and we've created all of our different fields, I want to show you a quick way where you can look at your fields and also modify the different data types. Down here in the bottom right hand corner, you can enter what's called the design view. And when I click on that, first I have to name my table. Right now it's table 1, but I want it to be more descriptive. Once again, this is tracking customer information, so I'll call this table customers. Once you finish typing in the name, click on OK. This now drops me into the design view, and here again I can see all of the different field names. You can also add field names here. This is a pretty quick way to add additional fields. Also, over on the right hand side here, you can quickly verify what the data type is for each one of your fields. And here too, you can click on it and you can change the data type very easily. Over on the right hand side, let's say maybe your field name's not really that descriptive. You can also add a description with some additional details. Let's jump back into the datasheet view. To do that, right down in the bottom right hand corner again, we can toggle back and forth between these different views. I'll click into the datasheet view. This drops us back into the datasheet view, and we're ready to start adding some records. Right now we have all of the fields in place, and I want to add the first customer. And the first customer is me. I'm probably one of the best customers. Anytime we finish a batch of cookies, I end up eating a lot of them. So right here, I'll go in and fill out my details. Feel free to do the same for yourself. Here I'll type in my first name, I'll go over and I'll type in my last name. One thing to call out, as I start typing in information here, you'll see that it automatically assigned an ID. So every time you go through and you add a new record, it'll automatically get an ID assigned to it. As a quick note on this ID, this is also what's referred to as the primary key. And what is a primary key? Well, this is a unique identifier. So basically every single customer record that we add to this table will have its own unique identifier. So no other customer will have the same ID as me. And of course, I'm the #1 customer. I probably eat the most cookies, so it's really fitting that I have the #1. We're also going to use this primary key to connect to other tables later on. And don't worry if that sounds complicated, I'll show you exactly how we go about doing that. In the meantime, let's go through and fill out the details of the first customer. Once you enter in the first customer, hit the enter key and that'll bring you down to the next record. And now you can go through and add some additional customers. Now, just for purposes of this demonstration, I want to go through and maybe add about 4 or 5 different customers, just so we have some examples in the data. Feel free to do the same and make up some customer information. I've now entered in a whole bunch of sample customer information. If you don't want to type in customer information, but you still want to follow along, I've included a link to this database in the description. This will allow you to access this database. We've now finished all of the customer information, and I now want to add one more table with all of the order information. To add another table, let's go back up to the top ribbon and let's click on Create. Right over here, we can create a new table. I'll click on the one that says Table. This drops us into a new table, and just like before, we need to build this out. Right up here, the first field is called ID, and I want this to be more descriptive. I'll double click on this just like we did before, and this time I'll call it Order ID. For the next field, I want to tie this back to the customer's table. Once again, this is one of the big benefits of databases. You can relate information, so you could connect one table to another table. So here I'll click on Tab, and for this field, I want it to be a number data type. I'll click on number, and now I can type in a field name. For this one, I'm going to type in customer ID. We're going to connect based on that primary key from the previous table. I want to add a few more fields. For this one, I want to include the order date, and a date is a date and time. I'll select that as the data type, and here I'll type in order date. I'll add another field for cookies ordered, and this is going to be a number data type. Here I'll call it cookies ordered. I'll add another field for the revenue. Here I'll click over here, and this is going to be a currency type. Next, I'll type in revenue. I'll add one more field called order filled. This is basically so our warehouse staff can go in and indicate whether the order has been fulfilled or if it's unfulfilled and they still have to package it and ship it. Here, I'll click on this field, and right down here, there's the option for yes, no. So if they say yes, it's already been shipped. If not, it hasn't. And I'll call this field order filled. Lastly, I want to add one more field. However, this one is going to be a little bit different. This is going to contain the revenue per cookie. And we have all of the information stored within here to be able to calculate that. Here, I'll have the revenue, and I'll also have the number of cookies ordered. So right here, let's click on this drop down where we can select the data type, and this is going to be a calculated field. We'll see in a moment what this does. Right down here, let's go down to calculated field, and revenue per cookie, that's going to be a number. So let's select the number data type. This opens up an expression builder in Access, and you can build all types of different expressions. One way to think of it is it's kind of like entering in a formula. Now, once again, I want to calculate the revenue per cookie. So down here, I see some of the expression categories. I'll take the revenue, and when I double click on that, you see it inserts revenue here. And I want to divide by the cookies ordered. So I'll enter the divide sign, and then right down here, I'll click on cookies ordered. So I'm going to take the revenue divided by the cookies ordered. That looks good. Next, let's click on OK. This drops me back into the table view, and now I can type in a name for the field. For this one, I'll type in revenue per cookie. I can now fill in some order details. So over here for the first customer, this will be Kevin who orders some cookies. Now, if you remember back on the customers table, customer ID 1 is for Kevin. So right back here in my order table, I'll type in customer ID number 1. Right here, I'll enter in the order date. I entered in an order date, and here I can type in cookies ordered. Now, if you know Kevin as a customer, he really loves cookies, so we're going to put down an order for 50 cookies. And these were some pretty premium cookies. They're about $2 per cookie, so I'll enter revenue of $100. Now that I have that entered in, one thing you'll see is it automatically calculates the revenue per cookie. Right over here, the order hasn't been filled yet, so I'll leave that checkbox unchecked. Now that we've finished filling out the basic structure of this table, once again, if we want to rename it, we can go down here and click into the design view, and then we'll be able to rename this. Alternatively, I can also close this table, and it'll ask me if I want to save it. I'll click on yes, and here I can now give it a name. I'll call this table orders. I've now finished saving my orders table, and over on the left hand side you'll see that I have two tables now. I could go up here and I could close the customers table, and now all of my tables are gone. But don't worry, we can easily get them back. Over on the left hand side, I can click on customers and I can click on orders, and that brings those tables back into view. I now want to go through and add some additional sample orders. So I'll go through and maybe type in 5 or 6 different orders. I've now gone through and I filled out a whole bunch of sample data. Now, one of the great things about creating a database, here you'll see with the customer ID, I don't have to repeat the customer information. I simply have to reference that ID, and then for this order, I can fetch all of the customer information. However, first off, I have to connect this customer ID to the customer table over here. How do we do that? Well, up at the top, let's go up to Database Tools on the ribbon. Once we click on that, there's an option for relationships. Let's click on this. Within relationships, I can define how different tables relate to one another. And over on the right-hand side, I see all of my tables. I have 2 tables. I'll click on customers and I'll pull that into this view. Next, let's go over to orders, click on that and pull that over as well. So here now I see my 2 tables, and you can see all of the fields in those 2 different tables. Right up here, you can see a key icon, and that indicates what the primary key is in that table. Now here I have the customer ID in my orders table, and I also have the customer ID in my customers table. Now I can simply click on the customer ID and I'll drag that over to the customer ID over in the orders table. That opens up a prompt where I can edit the relationship. So here I'm saying that this value or this field in the customer table is the same as this field in the orders table. So right now I'm saying that these 2 values or fields are the same. Next, I'll click on create, and you'll see now that there's a connection between these 2. So this is how Access knows how these 2 tables relate to one another. Once we're all done with this, let's go up to the top and click on close. This opens up a prompt to save the relationships. I'll click on yes. Along with manually entering in data into your database, you can also import it from other sources. Right up here on the ribbon, there's the option for external data. When we click on this, over on the left-hand side, you can see all the different places that you can bring data in from. For example, you can bring it in from a file, from a database, from different online services. So there are lots of different ways that you can get data into Microsoft Access. So far, we've been entering data directly into the table view, but let's say you want to have other people in your organization come in and add data. This might not be the most user-friendly view. Instead, you might want to create a form that makes that easier. Over on the left-hand side, I'll select the customer table. Right up here, let's click on Create on the ribbon. And right here in the middle, there's a section for forms. This will help us create a form for data entry, and you can also use it to review the different records that are in your tables. There's a form wizard that'll help you through the process. You could also start from blank. There's a form designer, or you could simply create a form. This is going to be the easiest way to create a pretty effective form, so I'll click on form right here. This now drops me into a new form, and down below I can see a sample of what the form looks like. So this will be a lot easier for others to come into and start adding information, and they can also use it to review information. Now, because we connected the customer table to the orders table, you'll see here all of the customer information shows up, and down below it has all of the related order information. So here, if I jump through the different records, here I could go to the next record. Here I see Cheryl as my second customer, and she has 2 orders associated with her. Right up on top, I can design what my form looks like. So I can choose different themes. I could choose different colors. I can add different controls to my form. I could even add a logo if I wanted to personalize it with the Kevin Cookie Company logo. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, just like we could do in the table view, here I could launch the design view. And within the design view, I can modify what this form looks like. Right up here, there's a form header. There are also details, and here I see a footer. I can take these different elements and I can move them around. I could design the form how I want it to look. Over on the left-hand side, right down here, I could also launch the form view. If you're going to have people in your organization going through and filling out forms, this will be likely the view that they see. Here they'll see all the customer information, but they won't be able to modify the form. To add a new customer record, you simply go down to the bottom and you can click on this icon to add a new blank record. When you click on that, you can then go through and you can fill out the form, and right down here, someone could go in and add some additional order IDs. So this makes it really easy to get new data into your database without having to see the tables and all of the details of the database. Once you're all done customizing your form, we can close out this form. Right up here, let's click on the X icon, and I want to save this form. So I'll click on yes, and then you could give it a name. I'll call this order form. Once you're done typing in the name, click on OK. Over on the left-hand side now, you'll see that it added a new category. So we have our tables, and now we have a new form. I can double click on order form, and this will open up that form again. In the introduction, I mentioned that much of the power of databases comes from being able to run queries. And in a moment, I'll show you how you can run and also write your very own query. To create a query, let's go up to the top ribbon and click on Create. Within Create, right here near the middle, there are 2 different options for queries. You can use the Query Wizard, and there's also something called Query Design. We're going to use Query Design. You'd be amazed at how many advanced queries I've written using Query Design. Let's click into this. This opens up the query designer, and I want to write a pretty basic query that shows me all of the orders that haven't been filled yet. I need to provide this to the warehouse crew so they can send out the orders. Now right here in the designer, right now we just have a blank slate. How do we start building out a query? And once again, this is just a drag and drop way of building queries, so it's extremely easy. In a moment, I'll show you what the SQL looks like to actually run the query, but we're just going to start out with this GUI, or this graphical user interface, first. Over on the right hand side, you see this pane that's called Add Tables, and we want to query against the data that's in these tables. So I'll take customers first and I'll drag it out into this view. Here I'll expand the rectangle just so we can see all of the details. Right next to it, I also have orders. Let's click on that and let's pull that in as well. Here, I'll also adjust the size of this rectangle. In an earlier step, we went through and we defined a relationship between this customer ID and this customer ID. So these two tables are connected. So I could do things like, for a specific customer, show me all of the orders, because these two tables are related. Now, once again, I want to show all orders that haven't yet been filled. And for this, I'm going to send it to the warehouse crew. And so they're going to need stuff like, well, what is the customer's name and what is their address where they should send the order? So over here, I want to pull in some information for this query. I want to show the first name. So I'll double click on first name. Here you see that first name shows up down below. I also want the last name. I want the customer's address, the city, the state, and also the zip and the country. They're going to need all of this information to send cookies to this customer. Now over on the right hand side, I have some additional information, and the warehouse crew is going to have to know, well, what was the order date? They also need to know how many cookies were ordered, but they don't need to know stuff like the customer ID or the order ID. That's not really essential for what they're doing, so I won't select these. Right down here, there's also the option that says order filled. Let's click on that one. Now this is all going to run a query and it'll give me back all of this information, but once again, I only want to show the orders that haven't yet been filled. You'll see down here it shows the field, it shows the table it's coming from. Here I could sort it. I could also decide whether I want to show it or if I don't want to show it. And right down here I can define criteria. So this is kind of like, or basically it's a filter for one of these fields. Over on the far right hand side I see order filled. And for this one I'm going to enter an equal sign and then type in no. So this means that the order hasn't been filled yet. So right now I have my query in place. Down in the bottom right hand corner, I can click on the datasheet view. Let's click on this to see what the results are. When I click into the datasheet view, look at that. That's our first query. So here it returns all of the different fields that I selected, and it also only returns all of the options where the order hasn't been filled yet. Now, one of the really neat things is here now I'm merging together customer information, so data from the customers table, together with data from the orders table. So it brings it all together in one view, and that's what I can pull off using a query. Now, so far, we just used a graphical user interface to pull off this query, and it's pretty impressive what you can do, but you might want to get your hands dirty and write a SQL query. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, we can see the SQL query that powered this. When I click on SQL, right here, I can see the actual SQL query. So right up here, we're selecting all of these different fields. We use a select statement and then we call out, well, hey, I want the first name, I want the last name, and we go through and we identify all of the different fields that we want. Then next, we're saying where it's coming from. So we're pulling it from the customers table, and then we're going to join that with the orders table. And we're making that connection on the customer ID. And then down below, this is where we have our criteria. So we're saying where order and orders filled equals no. So this is the actual SQL query. So if you want to get your hands dirty, and especially as you want to start running some more advanced queries, you can start experimenting with this. Now, the really neat thing is you can use this designer to pull together some really impressive queries. And then if you want to see how it works behind the scenes, you can click into SQL and you can see what the actual query is. Now that we've finished entering in our query, let's go up here and let's close out this view. And I want to save this query, so I'll click on yes, and we're going to call this unfilled orders. Once you're done typing in the name, click on OK. Over on the left-hand side, you'll see a new category now for queries, and this shows our unfilled orders. So if you want to quickly see all unfilled orders again, you can simply double click on that, and right now I have a view of all of the unfilled orders. Now, the really neat thing is, as you go in and you add, let's say, additional customers and additional orders, if you have any unfilled orders and you run your query, you'll immediately see them on this page. So let's say I have warehouse staff and they always need to know what orders have we not finished yet. They can simply run this query and they'll immediately see all of the orders that need their attention. So it's pretty powerful stuff. Lastly, I want to show you how you can create a report. So let's say that maybe management or someone else in the organization needs to see a summary of data. Or maybe for the warehouse crew, instead of having them come into this Access database and run the query, maybe every morning I want to print out a sheet of all of the orders that they have to fulfill. And I can use a report to do that. To create a report, just like we created a query, let's go up to the top ribbon and click on Create. Over on the right hand side, there's a section for reports, and we can click right here to create a report. And there are a few different options. You could use a report wizard, you could use a report designer, you could even start with a blank report. So depending on how much you want to customize it, you have different options here. Now I want to create a report that shows all of the unfilled orders. So I'll make sure to select this query over on the left hand side. If, say, you wanted to create a report of all of your customers or all of your orders, you can select those tables and then click on report, and that'll create a report of those items. Here, with unfilled orders selected, I'll click on report. This now generates a report with all of the unfilled orders. So here I see all of the information that I selected in the query, and it's all formatted in a very nice way. And here I can go over and I can see all of the details. Right up here, I can format the report however I want. I could go through, I could choose themes, I could choose colors, fonts. Even down here, I can preview what it'll look like when I print it out. Here I can see a report view, and here I can access the report designer. So I could go through and design specifically how I want this report to look. So I have quite a bit of customization. Once you're all done configuring your report, you can close it out and then you can save this report. Once you save it, it'll add a new category over on the left hand side, and here now I see the report here. So once again, I can very quickly navigate between my tables, my queries, my forms, and my reports. And just like that, we have now gone through all of the core functionality of Microsoft Access. This gives you all of the basics to start building out your own databases, to run queries, to create forms, and even to run reports. Of course, there's a lot that you can customize. There's a lot of advanced functionality, but this gives you all of the basics. The last item I want to show you is how you can save your database. To save, up in the top left-hand corner, click on the File menu and then go down to Save As. And here you can save it as an Access database. And just like that, we've now created our very first database and we've saved the database. So congratulations, you are now proficient in the fundamentals of designing databases. All right, well that's how you can get started using Microsoft Access. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. To see more videos like this in the future, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, if you want to see me cover any other topics in the future, leave a note down below. That is, after all, where this video idea came from. All right, well that's all I had for you today. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I hope to see you next time. Bye.
Whoops, I forgot to stop it. Gotta kill it. Nuts. Didn't want to kill. I guess it stopped. I guess it stopped all by itself.
Well,
Yes.
you're not sharing anymore, so we're not impacted by it.
Okay. All right. Before I answer questions, I've got to go out and find the document. I'll be right back. Just a minute. Okay, I'm back. Do we have questions about this? Actually, I'm kind of speaking to the choir because I think several people on here already know how to run Access. He did a pretty good job of presenting it. Saul?
So do you, is that how you use it for the most part? I mean, that was a good half-hour introduction on the basic functionality and how you get stuff
Yeah,
done.
I use it for a lot of stuff. I actually use it mainly. I do some memberships for different groups that I belong to, including the seniors computer group. It works great for that. I have a large music collection that I keep a database, so I keep it separated by my CDs and my LPs and my 8 tracks and things like that. So I keep all that stuff on a database so I can search and find any particular musical selection by, the by the type or various things. I've got maybe half a dozen different categories. I also keep a lot of my book library in it so I can find a particular book that I want. And what's nice is I set up my library organized by author because I can never remember the title of the book, but I can usually find it by author. So I just search that database to find the particular book that I want. And I've got a lot of computer programs and I just number those starting at 1. And right now I'm up over 4,000. So, to find a particular computer CD or it would be very difficult to do it otherwise. And so I just go by number and then I can search it out in a database under a category or the actual publisher or by the actual name of the software. I also we got quite a bit of art in the house. So I keep a database on the various art that we have, where I bought it, what I paid for it, who the artist is, information about the art. Collections, I have a large collection of chess sets and I keep a database on all that so I know what I've got. Surprisingly, I even did a database for my wife's jewelry so that she can figure out, what jewelry she has, where it is, and what goes with what. But there's all kinds of things you can use it for, and I use it a lot. It really, probably I use it in places that I probably should use Excel, but it's almost easier sometimes to do a database.
Let me be more specific. You distributed to the board a membership report last month. And yet I think you exported stuff out to Excel to do that report, as opposed to what was demonstrated in the video. I'm trying to understand, is there a possible brief way you could show us how the numbers in that report you distributed, where they came from in your query?
Sure. Yeah. Let me bring up Access and I can do that. Just a second. I get out of this crazy. I've got to get out of this YouTube.
Well, you're not sharing your.
No, I'm not sharing screen right now.
You could close the web browser.
You could close the tab.
Yeah, that's what I need to do. That gets me out. Okay, let me let me show you how we get into.
I'm primarily interested in the query and the report.
Okay.
Presumably you could have just sent the report out as whatever kind of document that produces.
No, I use just the queries. I just say, for instance, give me a count. There's a function in there called count. And so I can count the number of people who have a expiration date greater than a particular date. And that shows me all the active just shows me a count of all the active people. And that just comes out with a number, and I put that into the Excel spreadsheet. And so I ask for, give me all the life members, and all those have a expiration date of,
Yeah, if you just show us the
2099.
query, I think we'll get it.
Yeah, okay, let me get into it here.
I'll let you go because I'm in the middle of a Zoom meeting.
Where is access? Here's access. Okay, let me share screen now. Where is well, I've lost our. Okay, back to here. Okay, here we go. Okay, let me share a screen and I'll show you what I've got. Okay, do you folks now see access
We do.
screen? Okay. Okay, so first I bring up the database, which is this one with my mouse on it. It says senior comp 221210. That's the latest version of this particular database. So I just click on that. And now in this, I go over, it shows tables on the left. I don't want tables, I want queries. So instead of tables, okay, I want queries, which is this one down here, fourth from the bottom. If I click queries, one of the queries I have is called count. Here it is, count. And you can see I have several different years in here. But if I click on count active, you see where my
Yes.
pointer is, count active. And I double click that. It brings up with a count, and see the count is 44, which then I just write down on a piece of paper, active is 44. So then I can transfer these numbers into the spreadsheet that I have that just lists these various numbers. So count active is one. Here's one called count life, and it brings up a list of the life members that we have. And down at the bottom, it says 1 of 9. So I know that that is 9. If I click count new in 2022, let me show you what the search looks like for that. If I click it, it comes up with 5, but let me show you how I got to that number. Let me close down some of these things. If on count, I go up here and under file in the upper left-hand corner, there is a view, and I can view either the form view or the designer view. I want the design view of how I came up with this number. And this is the way no, I don't want form view. I'm sorry. That's not what I want. I want design view.
I think you need to have the count new query selected, opened. Yeah, double click that.
Yeah,
And then-
okay. And now hit this design view. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah, okay. Here is the design that I have. I first bring up what the name of the query is, a table members, and out of that, I look for under the join date, the criteria for that is greater or equal to 11 November 1st, 2021. Okay, this one says 2021. It should be, or am I looking at the
1/1/22.
new members? It should be 2/2. It shouldn't be 2/1.
Well, that's the 11th, the 11th month. That's
Right,
first-
and we count members who join after 11/1 of 20. That should be 22. Now, I don't know why it's coming up that
No,
way.
I think one was right. You're saying that for the 2022 year, anybody who joined
yes,
after
you're right.
November
Yeah,
1st
you're
of
right.
2021.
Right. Okay, that's correct.
But my point is you're not generating the table of the report from Access.
No. The table comes from a spreadsheet that I have.
You're just
with-
manually populating the Excel spreadsheet with each of these values manually going
correct.
through it. Okay.
Yeah.
So this
I
is not
probably
an
could
example of how well you could use Access
Yeah,
to generate
I
a report.
probably could generate a report from that. I just took the easy way out.
So you answered the question. After the meeting sometime, whenever you have some time, not necessarily today, I think I asked before to explain how you came up with the numbers, let's say for January, for February, for March in that
Yeah.
report. And you can move on to David's question.
Okay, David?
Yeah, one of the things that I was wondering when, you build all these databases, but sometimes, I would like to do the equivalent of, hey, Siri, how many, John Wayne movies do I have? And build, is there a way to have other programs get the data from those queries and use it in other ways? I mean, what sort of interface is there for other programs to extract the data from those databases? Or do you have to use the Access program to see anything?
No, you can import data from spreadsheets.
No, but I mean,
and you
out,
can import
out of Access. You've done something in Access, and I want to get that information.
you wanted to go out to those
Yeah.
go out to those files and pull back the
Yeah,
data.
yeah. So sort of like, let's say I had an Excel spreadsheet and I wanted that number from the query. Is there a way that Excel could reach out to the Access, pull in that number automatically?
I don't know of any way to do that. Expect maybe there is a way. Anybody know?
Yeah, yes, you can do that.
Yeah. Miriam Davis is a Access database user. Miriam, you're on, I believe.
Well, Willie did speak up.
Okay, Willie, you use Access, don't you? Yeah. Okay,
Well,
Willie.
I don't use Access, but Excel, I do a lot of external grabbing data from external sources. And one of the things you can grab into Excel is from a SQL database, any kind.
Okay, so
But it's just a matter of looking at you have to do get data from.
Yeah.
I can show that.
You can import a lot of stuff with CVS data.
But you don't have
to
to go through that
Yeah.
intermediate step. You can just go straight to Access, and
Yeah.
you give it a file name, and it'll go in there and it'll figure out the shape of whatever you want. It's pretty simple.
I expect there's a lot of other functions in Access that I don't use and probably could use, but I get to the point where I don't want to do all that work. And if I find an easier way, I do it. But I do use Access a lot for, as I mentioned before, for a lot of the other things that I try to keep track of. And once you set it up, it's pretty easy to go in and get information out of it.
So Willie, just sort of to continue along that thing, does Access need to be like up and running, or can the Excel just reach out and look in the database, look in the files and figure out how to do things, or do you need to be running a server that it connects to?
I don't know the answer to that because I don't have an Access file that I can look at.
Okay. Yeah,
But I just know that when I search for different files, it'll say what kind of file you want, and if you put in SQL, it will ask you for a file name, and then if you probably put in, I don't know what the extension is. It's a like, I think Access has a 5-digit extension on it.
Yeah, it's an ACCDB or
Yeah,
something like
So
that.
I assume you could just click on that file name and get it.
Okay.
I'll try it after this is over.
Okay.
One thing
that
I wanted to point out, though, since I got the floor here, is there is a free version of this if somebody doesn't have access or has to pay for it. It's called LibreOffice, and it includes a database. It runs the syntax is a little bit different. It's got the same functionality in terms of building databases and accessing and querying it. But if you look at the SQL languages, they're a little bit different, slightly different. And
As you can see on the left-hand side, I've got a zillion queries that probably a lot of them are old and I shouldn't even have them on here, but so it's so easy just to keep them on here. The problem is naming them so you know what the query is and what it does. By the way,
I think you need a database of your queries.
probably one thing you notice that all the queries start with the letter Q. All the tables start with the letter T. All the forms start with the letter F. So I can keep track, looking at these things, of knowing what they are when I go searching for them. That's one thing that Kevin didn't talk about. Naming is really important, so you know what various things are.
But just to point out, that's by design, Will.
Yeah.
You name that, and it puts it in alphabetical order. So if you start with Q, the next letter is how it defines how it's listed on your chart.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Correct.
But is that just your convention, Will?
That's just that's a recommended convention by Access, as a matter of fact. They suggest that you start the naming of your various tools with what they are, whether they're a query or a form or a table. It makes it easier to find them if you have to go looking for them somewhere.
Yeah,
But,
I understand that. I'm just saying in the example in the video, if he named a query, orders or something like that, Access didn't automatically put an O or Q in front of it, I should say.
No, you have to do that yourself. But I was surprised that he didn't do that. But that's one of the things recommended by Access that you do. It makes it easier to find things. But you can see all the various things that I look for here, that all you have to do is just click on it and it'll bring the information up. For instance, query date paid. If I just click that, it comes up with the date paid in that order. And by the way, you can change that sequence to be, first or last or within a certain date range. And then you can tell it to do the other ones in alphabetical order or any sequence you want. And it's a really quick way to bring up information that you might want. If I want a count of all the inactive people, it'll bring that up too. And that's huge, because in the tables, here I'm looking at queries, but if I look at tables, I probably have a lot of tables that we have, old ones, new ones. And one that I use all the time is transactions. And this table just brings up all the transactions that have happened. I would like to have it come up in reverse order in terms of the date that I do it. But as you can see, this goes way back to 2015. So it's been around for a long time. But
David has his physical hand up as well as his virtual.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Will, I just wanted to tell people, just so in case people didn't notice, that technique of naming where you put the type information at the front, that's called Hungarian notation. And, it's, some computer programmers like to do that. They'll name any integer value something with an I, any float value with an F, any S value with a string. I think that's losing popularity because the type information is actually it's easy enough to find, and the names get confusing enough anyway, but
Yeah.
what you were doing was called Hungarian notation.
Okay. I notice here in this table of transactions, every time I go in and do a change to the database, it saves that information into this transaction file. So, you know, if I have a question about, gee, what happened with, for instance, Willie Stevenson, he's in here 3 times, and apparently I made obviously 3 changes to his information, probably just with his email address, I expect.
Probably
Although
the last
His
name.
last name. It's the way you spelled his Stevenson.
Data's only as good
oh
as the
yeah,
data
okay,
you
that's
put in.
it. Right. It was PH before, and now I changed it to T. But there's no way that I can go back and say, gee, what did I change, without looking at the specific information. And you know, it would be nice if there was some way that it comes up and says, oh, you changed the last name spelling or something, but that gets a little, I suppose there's a way to do that, but I don't need that information.
Yeah, some databases have a feature called journaling where you can go back and you can roll back transactions and so on like that.
Yeah.
So
Well, this essentially is a journal that I have called Transactions. And as you can see, there's
how did you make
I'm up
that?
to
Yeah.
1,240 transactions or
Yeah.
something in it.
Yeah. How did you
Yeah.
make it so that working on a table automatically fills in that transaction table as well? Is that
Oh,
some
okay. I can show
feature
you that.
some feature you
Yeah.
turned on?
Yeah. Let me show you that. If we go to forms, let me close that down. Okay, if we go to forms and attend, no, that's not the form I want. Let me go find members. I think it's called members. Yeah, okay. Here is an import form that I have for putting in, making changes or putting in new data. And for instance, if I want to find somebody, if I want to find myself, for instance, I put in WAK and it brings up all the W's, and I just click on my name. Now it brings up all the data that I have in there about me. And then down here, there are various things I can do. I can save the record when I'm finished editing it. I can delete it. I can add a new record. If I say click a new record, it comes up blank. Now this is a form I generated though, and it takes a little time to generate a form like this, but not that much. But there are all kinds of things that I can do. For instance, when I'm going to rejoin now and for 2023, I will hit, well, right now, my expiration date ends in 2099. That means I'm a life member. That's the key for a life member, is that it has a 2099 expiration date. But if I were to click this 2023, it then would say that it will expire in January of 2023, which means I have not re-upped for next year if I were to do that. But but to bring it back to where it was, 99, or I can go down here and I don't know, there's a thing that I can save without adding it, without updating it. But usually when I hit close, it will then take this information and put it into that transaction file. But as you can see, there are various things you can do. And forms are a little difficult to do, but not that hard. But they're very convenient because it allows other people to come in and enter data without knowing about access.
But yeah, the short answer to my question is what it updates the table is some things that you put into the form that people use to enter the data.
Say it again.
Yeah, what updates your transaction table is when a person, basically they come in, they use that form and they hit save, and that not only saves the information, but also puts a new record in the transaction.
Yeah, I think save record does that. You see down here in the lower right-hand corner, there's a save record and a close. A close doesn't change anything. Save record saves that information both in the table, active table, and also in the transaction table.
Okay, that's, I just wondered if it was a thing built into Access, but no, this is something you've added.
Yeah,
What it is for.
all right. If I click on, if I click on this, go to designer view. In the design view, under save record, it will come up with a, let's see if I do this. It should come up and tells me what the event, build the event, I think. I don't want to get in here and mess too much because I haven't used this in a long time, but
Okay,
there is a bunch of statements behind this that tells you what you should do when you click on that button.
Which
And
is, yeah, that's a good thing for us to know that is possible. I don't want you to mess up.
yeah, I don't
anything
want to
you've
mess
done.
with it, but when it says build event, you can go in and tell it exactly what you want it to do when you click on a button. And very powerful tool. And these buttons are real nice in that they will do things automatically for you. And they can be very, very complicated or very simple, depending upon how much work you want to put into it. While I've got this open, any other questions?
Yeah, well, not so much on this. You could stop sharing if you want, but a general question. When you went to your files to find this file, this access file, it looked like maybe you save this file periodically and you get newer and newer versions of it, maybe just
Correct.
for
Yes.
historical reasons. Is that just caution, like a backup in a sense? Because I'm not
Yeah, I
sure why
don't
you would
know
need
that-
to be
Yeah.
copying the file every time you want to update it monthly or whatever.
You have to do that manually. It doesn't automatically.
What I'm saying
create
is in a
backup.
database, it stores all the information forever, right? So if you add new records, you don't need to do that in a new file, right? You could do it in the existing access file.
Correct. I do a backup by creating a new file with the data on it.
That's
Just
what I
so
meant.
that if I lose the
Yes,
original, I've got a backup.
that's what I meant. Okay.
Yeah. That's what I do. Okay, other questions before I close this? It's very powerful program, and I use it a lot, so as you can tell. But I can dig out almost any information I want, and that's the beauty of being able to build these queries, is that you can make them jump through all kinds of hoops.
And every time you build a query, that query gets saved, or you intentionally save it when you build a query. And then you can go back and run that query again anytime and get today's answer.
Yes, you save it. You save it with a name, and then you can find it.
So Willie has his virtual hand up.
Yeah, Willie.
Yeah, as per a conversation we had last meeting when we were talking about transitioning to another group or whatever, another person. Do you have some kind of documentation, or can you develop documentation of this process? So say I take it over or somebody else in the group takes it over, we can get somewhere.
I don't have it, but I can generate that.
I mean, is that something that the group wants?
I think it's important that we have that. But it is important that someone that takes over understands access so they don't have to learn it from scratch. It's not simple, but it's not all that complicated. If you've worked with Excel spreadsheets, it's pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, I have the basic knowledge and all the stuff that Stratford showed. I've been through his videos and I've developed, I've written my own access things, but I've never gotten into the details of this forms and button properties and where the buttons can do things. Like in Excel, I use that with macros to do things and buttons and things. But
this is interesting. I had forgotten that I have
advanced.
this button called Archive the Record. And tell you the truth, I don't even remember what that's supposed to do. But if I click on I right-clicked on the archive record and I go to design view, and let's see what it says. Doesn't show me. I don't know. I haven't used it in so long, I've kind of forgotten how to do it. So I guess that doesn't help. But I should find out what that does. Behind this, there is essentially a SQL statement that tells it what it's supposed to do. And SQL statements, you need to really take a class in it.
One of the
They're-
things,
They're basically easy, but they take some special formatting.
one of the things I thought was actually useful in the Access database is with that query designer, you can, point and click and drag, and then once you have that set up, then you can go and look and see what SQL got generated from that. But that is for people getting into it, it's a good way of building what would be a complicated thing to write if you're writing the SQL yourself.
Yes, yeah. So with this one, I don't want to make any changes to it. So I go down here and just click on the button that says close, and it won't make any changes at all to it. So that's what I need. But as you can see, I've got a lot of different forms in here that I didn't know. Let's see, I've got okay, here's a form under account. What does that do? All right, this apparently I should use this. I don't. If I click active, now this says 241. The reason it says that is it's looking at some old numbers. And if I go up here and say view and find out what the
That was 2016, it looks like.
yeah, that's the problem, is I'm saying show me all the people who have expiration dates greater or equal. And by the way, in dates, you have to put the pound sign, enclose the date in a pound sign so it knows it's a date. That's an unusual thing. But this says for 2016. So that's why the number came up so large. And I switched between the views here in the upper left-hand corner. This is the view, and then you can go to a designer view. The designer view shows you how you come up put in the query for that. But this goes back to the actual data that comes up. And again, you can change these windows just by dragging and dropping. I'm sorry, not dropping, but just dragging. There's all kinds of really neat features built into it. If I want to count live members, I just click that. Now, it's interesting, when I count life, it doesn't come up with a number. It just comes up with listing them. And I don't know why.
At the bottom, it says 1 of 9.
I know, but it should, like the other ones, when I do a count, it comes up with an actual number. For instance, let's go back to, I'm in forms. I don't want to be in forms. I want to be in queries. But if I go to query of life, I go to count life members. There it is right there. If I click on that, it brings this up, but it doesn't bring up the number, which if I say count active, see, it comes up with a number, not the list of the active people.
And
I'm not.
what I would suggest is with each of those two things, look at the SQL and see how the SQL differs.
Yeah. Okay. Don't want to take your time.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions that people have?
No, I was just going to add that, as Willie suggested, if you are going to write a procedure for this, you should look through all your queries, your forms, your tables, and give a brief definition. And if you find ones that are no longer needed, you could delete them and don't have to define them.
I need to go through and clean out a lot of these that are old. But for instance, I even have a count of 2019. How many do we have? We only had 26 back then. That's interesting.
Well, thank you, Will.
Okay. All I can say is if you have a fairly large amount of information and you want to look at it, this is a very good program to use. Okay, let me. I don't want to do that.
You can just stop sharing.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I think it's time for non-access Q&A, if there is any. Can I see hands? By clicking reactions and raising hands. I don't see any hands. Nobody had any problems this week.
Apparently not.
There, Willie, go.
Yeah. Hank, did you get the 3 videos the links to the videos that I sent to you? I sent you an email yesterday after you sent out the meeting notice, and I sent 3 links to 3 different videos that might be of interest if nobody had anything
Oh,
else.
yes,
to
yes,
say.
yes, I saw that.
Well, you review it and decide whether you want to put it into your program stuff, but
Yeah, I think I need to take some time to watch all 3 of them and see when and how they might be shown. Is that
right?
make sense?
Yeah, that's sort of what I was suggesting, that if you want to review it. I mean, one of them is Excel, or 2 of them are Excel videos. One of them is a Word video, because I think it was Doug that was on the meeting last week said, or no, maybe it was Will, you were asking how to put the file name into a Word document on the footer.
No, someone else wanted that.
Okay.
I don't know who it was. Yeah, did you find a way to do that?
Yes, it's in the video.
Okay, that'd be good.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but you have to climb through the menus to do it.
Well, I'm so far behind in evaluating suggestions that have already been made, because Sal and David have each said something about presentations that might be made. And I want to go through those with the 2 of them. And maybe what I plan to do is whenever I'm sure we're done with today, is ask David and Saul to stick around, and the 3 of us, and you too, Willie, if you want to, because those 3 videos are candidates for presentations in the next few weeks. And I think we're there.
Okay.
So I'll see you all next week, except Saul, Willie, and David, who might stick around right now. And
I was going to say, I didn't show, for instance, this music database that I have, whether anybody would be interested in see how I set that up to query into all kinds of different things in my music collection. By the way, anybody interested in a whole bunch of old LPs, or I got LPs going back 70 years, by the way. So is there a market out there for those?
But I've got no way to play them.
Yeah,
Oh, I
that's
have a
the
way to
problem
play
now.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I got a player that hooks into with a USB connector on it, so you can actually go directly to a WPM file. I believe they are.
And Hank, I just want to say next week would be the 31st. That would be New Year's Eve. So that's when our next meeting is, in case anyone has other plans for that day.
Yeah. Shall we have a meeting on New Year's Eve? Anyone? We ought to just forget that.
Dan has his virtual hand raised.
It's It's early enough in the day that it wouldn't bother people who are going to go out and party. Yes,
The
Dan,
problem would be if it were the next day, right?
yeah. Dan, what do you have to say?
I wanted to talk to Will Wakely, in that he has all these old records. I believe there's a record shop in San Diego, which is dealing in those old records, which you might want to look into.
What's the name of it? The record shop?
I don't know. I just recall that someone is dealing in old records, and I saw it in a newspaper in the last week or so.
Okay.
I'm
I
not
act-
interested in them.
I actually have some 8-tracks. That kind of dates me, doesn't it?
Good luck with those. But record shops, there was one on University near 36th Street, and I imagine there's probably a few others in the San Diego area, as well as other cities.
Because I've got a lot of vintage stuff that goes back to the 50s, and that's a long time ago.
They would look at each one individually, look at the condition they're in, consider whether there's a market for it, and then determine whether they will accept it.
Yeah.
And if not, I guess you could give it to Goodwill or Salvation Army or somebody, or maybe a library. Libraries still have some of those.
Well, there was a thing on TV in the last week where this guy is making salad bowls out of them. So
I was wondering,
I
maybe a
guess that's-
university archive could use some of those things.
Yeah, by the way, San Diego State was doing a database. Well, not a database. Well, maybe it is a database, but they were doing an archiving of some of the old publications, computer publications. And I ran across a bunch of them that I have. Old Dr. Dobbs, orthonology. I've forgotten what the exact name was for it. It had a weird name. Journal of Orthonology or something. But has a whole lot of old computer stuff in it, going back to the early 80s, I guess.
you may talk to some of the library people about those things.
Well, there was a lady at San Diego State that was collecting them and doing a database, or at least putting them into digital format.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned, except for Saul and David and Willie,
Okay.
not Will.
Have a Merry Christmas, folks.
Yes, and see you before the new year one last time.
Correct.
So Saul, start your questioning. Or
I
Hank,
think it's Hank.
Hank. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that Saul and David both had something to say about a possible presentation subject. Either they were ready to give one or they thought we ought to have one. I don't remember which. So Saul, does that ring a bell?
My recollection was we asked about taking, being a backup for various positions, not so much presentations, and I did offer to do some of those. One thing that was asked about during a meeting a couple of weeks ago, you already covered last week, which was how to count cells in Excel, which I didn't think warranted a full presentation, but it was an excellent video that you posted on that. So I think that's been covered.
Willie found that.
Yeah, that brief couple minute one that covered a handful of different count functions and had a great example of data to go with it was straightforward.
Okay.
What I remember saying was that one of the things that they hadn't covered in the Excel presentations so far was how to make graphs of your data. And I was going to offer to find a video and then have a little sample spreadsheet where I could show how it worked to do making graphing your data that's in Excel.
I agree. That is really, really important, and many people pick their database or spreadsheet program based on how easy that is to do in a given program. So yes, please, David, could you do that next week? Or do you want to take more time?
I tell you what, I will look at it for a couple of days, and then I'll look through a few videos. I'll send you a video, and once I send you the video, then we'll schedule it.
Okay, good. Because I don't have anything scheduled for next week right now. And maybe I think we might get a shortage of people next week like we have this week. And I think that's important enough that maybe we just ought to postpone it. And make
Yeah, I
sure
would agree.
to do it,
Yeah.
do it after the holiday rushes or the holiday desertion has
subsided.
exactly.
Yeah.
Willie,
Oh.
what are your three, what were those three videos that you want me to look at?
Okay, the first one was based, it's a video from a Excel expert that it talks about protecting cells. And there was a question from Doug last week about how we can keep pi from being overwritten, if you remember that discussion, the 3.1415 number. So it's a description of, it's a 7-minute video that shows how you protect cells, and then you have to protect the sheet and put in a password if you want. It doesn't have to be password protected, but anyway, it's the whole video starts from beginning to end. It's how you
protecting cells. What's the next one?
The other one was how to put the file path name into the footer of a Word document, which again was a question somebody asked, and I dug into it and found out how to do it. And that's my own video that I made on how to do that. And tell you the truth, the third one, I can't remember what it is right now. I'll have to check.
I was suggesting an advanced Microsoft Word video or something to show the advanced features of Microsoft Word that most people don't use but are available.
Which advanced features? There's about 1,000.
Well, we could pick out, the major dozen or something, half dozen.
I don't find any of those that Will just suggested, or that of the three or two of the three that Willie has suggested. Those don't leap out at me as, yeah, that'll drag them in, and all sorts of people want to learn that. Anybody disagree or agree or what? I'm looking for we have spent a lot of time on Excel and database, and there has been considerable interest, but mostly I think from those who already use databases a lot, which are about 1, 2, 3, 4. About,
you can see most of them right here.
yeah, the faces that are on this screen right now, except me, are big database users. I'm an Excel user, but for one particular function, totaling up.
Dan's got his hand up.
I think you're getting a little deep for the general population if you're trying to get members.
Yeah.
One thing that Will asked about a couple of weeks ago was the cloud, and general information about stuff like that.
About what?
The cloud, where the information is stored and stuff like that.
What is the cloud and where is the cloud?
That's a good question.
I have looked up, I've looked that up in YouTube, and there are a couple of pretty good presentations there.
Well, people are putting all this information out on the internet and they don't know where it is. And a general safety precaution might be appreciated there if they understand it. But I was just reading an article in yesterday's newspaper about TikTok, and TikTok, they've tried to get them to move their information to the cloud under control of Oracle so that the Chinese can't see it. But, you know, these are a little deep too. It's general information about you're putting your information out there, and some of it's on your computer, some of it's out in the cloud, some of it's wherever. So general information like that, I think, would be more appropriate for this group than digging deep into databases, which a few of us use, but I don't think you're going to get a lot of interest.
I would be interested in, you know, what is quantum computing and why do we care?
What is what?
Quantum computers and why do we care?
The only reason we would really care is if it actually breaks all the encryption algorithms.
No, I'd like to know more about quantum computing, but maybe I'm just a, you know, a techie. Maybe other people don't care about it.
You're talking to a bunch of techies here, so
Yeah.
Well, we're into Chromebooks today. I'm on a Chromebox right now.
Yeah.
And
Dan, do you know enough about what makes a Chromebox or a Chromebook different than other things to tell us a bit about that during a session?
basically, it's your browser, and everything is stored online. You don't have a whole lot of memory in a Chromebox, and you don't have the ability to run programs in it. You're just using the Google browser, and it's going out on the internet and looking, you know, brings you a Word program, which stores all your information out in the cloud. And, you know,
Okay, but that's, you have just done what he asked you, could you do as a presentation on some future week?
I'm not very good at giving presentations is the main problem.
Yeah. None of us are comfortable giving presentations, but we do it anyway.
But you just said what a Chromebook is pretty clearly, I thought.
Yeah.
That was a very short presentation.
Yeah.
I think what could be advantageous to the whole group, the whole computer group, would be to describe what each different type of computer is capable of, like a PC, a Mac, a Chromebook, an iPhone. You know, in general, they're all computers, but they have their own kind of niche.
Yeah, an iPhone, a tablet, an e-reader.
If you can compile all that together and say the pros and cons of each one, I mean, the pros of a Chromebook is it's small, lightweight, cheap, but the con is you can't really download applications and run queries in the background.
You're tied to what you can do through the web.
Right.
You can't do anything without an internet connection.
Right.
So as an example, exact example of that, I was out visiting relatives recently, and they have an old laptop, and they were debating what to replace it with because it's pretty long in the tooth as far as updates and operating systems and compatibility. And one of the relatives said, you know, should we get another laptop, a regular laptop, or should we get a Chromebook? And that was the exact same query. And I said, well, pretty much what Dan just said. You know, you have to be online. You're basically going to be limited to whatever you can do in a web browser. You're probably going to be in the Googleverse, meaning you're going to use Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, whatever. And you're not going to be able to put in a lot of programs, although the newer Chromebooks are supposed to be able to run Android-based apps that you might do on a phone or a tablet. But you know, if you want to do anything pretty much offline or have other specific programs. So it came down to, well, if all you're doing is web browsing and email, and you're not doing much of anything else, but I don't know, most people usually have a few more things they want to do and may not be wanting to always be connected online to do it, such as even a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet or the equivalent in Google docs and sheets.
My main concern there was privacy.
A very valid concern, Dan.
Because your data is not your data if someone else is hosting it.
Well, in the case of Google, that's absolutely true. It is Google's data.
And Google is Chromebook.
I don't hear someone volunteering to run that week, the week that we examine all the different kinds of computers there are and talk about the pros and cons of each. That's really a huge subject.
Yeah.
Okay, and that may be something that's a 2 or 3 week sort of spread out presentation, but it's the sort of thing that it takes a lot of preparation to do it well.
Yeah.
I can do a presentation just on Kindle alone, and that just Kindle would do a half-hour presentation.
Yeah, you've got another step. You've got Kindle and you've got tablets and various assorted things in there. I think that would make a good, maybe a discussion type presentation where.
Well, actually, I have an idea, Hank. We could do a survey and find out what kinds of devices people have and would like to know about. And then once we know what kinds that they have, then we can see if there's someone that can talk about Kindles or someone that can talk about Android tablet or an iPad.
Let's do that next week. I can put together the invitation that invites everyone to just arrive next week with a list of the program or of the machines, the devices that they use. And
if they know,
we'll just make next week the compilation of those total number of devices that we get out of however many people show up next week.
Yeah,
And then
you
we'll
sure
see
that's
whether
good
we
for
need
next
to
week?
add to that the following week.
Mhm.
And then from that, eventually I will put together a presentation or a group of presentations that describes each of them, and we'll
Maybe we could have a discussion like we're having now.
yeah, and we can do a
Get a
compare.
vote.
We can do a compare and contrast and say, okay, this one's good for that. It's not really good for this. If you want to do this kind of thing, you need that kind of thing, or maybe you don't. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do over the internet if you have a good connection.
Okay, next week's title is Who Has What?
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Home
Yeah.
security, I would like to hear something on home security, as to
Well,
what's available.
you're talking about home security or computer security?
Home security.
Home security. Well, now that's another subject.
Yeah.
Home security and the devices that you buy to do it. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I have no idea. If I wanted to set up a home security system, where do I start?
You can get a Ring doorbell.
We did a presentation on home automation last June or so, I think.
Yes. If I were starting home security, I'd call ADT.
Well, some of those home security companies, I have little or no faith in because they really don't do a lot. But that's another subject also.
I found the least expensive way to do it is go steal an AT. What is it? Sign that says that your home is protected by
ADT sign.
and just put that out in the front of your house, and you don't have to do anything else.
And then the real question is, does ADT do much more?
True.
I had an aunt that had paid for home security, and she came home one night and the door was open. So she called the security company, and they said, well, go in and check it out and see if there's anybody there. And her answer was, wait a minute, that's what I'm paying you for.
No, thank you. ADT does not provide home security systems in Hawaii. But for some strange reason, I have this sign out in front of my house that says ADT and has the number you call. I could buy that and have it shipped to Hawaii, but I couldn't buy the system.
Yeah. Well, I think if a potential robber comes by and sees the sign, they will go to the next house.
I also have a sign on the gate to the backyard that says beware of the dog.
I was going to say, you could just get a dog and maybe that would be better than other systems.
I think the sign is cheaper.
You can just get it.
The sign is lower maintenance. That's
You might
definitely,
well- yeah.
I'm going to have to walk the sign.
Okay, I have made 2 notes. One of them says who has what, and that's what we're going to do the beginning of next week. And with a goal of someday having some discussions of those things that people find interesting out of that list that we'll get together. The other note that I have is what and where is the cloud? Help my aging memory. Have we had that, or have we had a little bit of it?
We had a post-meeting discussion a few weeks ago when that came up, and it was discussed after the meeting.
Okay, then I will go looking. Next week will be who has what, but maybe the week after that will either be what David said he could put together, which is, wait a minute, which is what again, David?
yeah, that's showing data graphically in Excel.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Graphs from spreadsheet.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Graphs from spreadsheets. Okay. And if you're not ready for the week after,
I should be.
years.
It should be okay. Yeah.
yeah, you should. But I'm gonna do or give up on, I'm not sure which, what and where is the cloud. I think that's worth trying to present and generating enough dissension and disagreement so that we all learn something during that process.
Yeah. Well,
I think that's where is my data stored?
Yeah.
yeah.
If I buy the services of the cloud, what did I buy and where did it go?
Yeah. Well,
And I think,
and where could it go too?
yeah, and I think part of that is different online storage and the security of each, meaning Dropbox versus Google Drive versus whatever Microsoft's Drive is, or other online storage. Some are certainly more private and secure than others.
So yeah, because so I remember at the Shepherd Center, they were using Sync for basically.
That was per my recommendation, because even Sync can't decode the stuff. and you cannot say that about Dropbox or Google or pretty much anybody else. They all have the master key.
Okay, everybody, I'm happy with our post discussion. Willie, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say if next week is not expected to be a big turnout for the meeting, I'm not sure we want to do the device poll.
I think we'll start the device poll. I don't think we'll finish it.
Yeah.
What I was going to suggest is if we have an email listing, if we can at least email to all the members or all the active people, if they can just send back a list to either me or Will, if he wants to put it in his database of the devices they use. I mean, obviously everybody that's on their Zoom has something. They can just say, we put down here Windows 10, Android,
Was this to be just
nicknames.
devices, or was this to be suggestions for programs?
Well, I was talking about if the program is devices, because we were going to say, let's poll the people.
Oh, I misunderstood. I
devices
thought
they
it was
have.
going to be a list of subjects that people were interested in.
Well, we did that a few weeks ago, but
Yeah, well, that's an ongoing question that Hank
Yeah.
has for us
Right.
always.
Right.
But this was an idea of saying, as opposed to, because we started with Chromebooks and say, well, there's not just Chromebooks, there's other kinds of things.
Yeah.
And as opposed to scattering
Yeah.
every kind of device there is. Let's find out what our people have and
Right.
talk to those.
Right. I
Hey,
mean, I
before-
can understand next week just starting that discussion, but it doesn't make sense unless there's 30 people on the line to
Well,
ask. a
but
question
we
in the
can
meeting.
we can start the discussion, and if we only have 3 people next week, then we'll
Table that.
do it more the following week. But I
Right.
think we'll probably get as many as 10 as we did today, and that will probably cover most devices. We'll see.
Right. Well, then I was going to make a suggestion on the same vein as the database nerdness that I am, that if Will can get those people's names, since he already has the access database, and put the devices next to their names in some field of some sort.
There is a field for that.
Right. And they keep those records, and then at least we can have when it's passed down to the next generation, we have a list of all the different devices that are being used by a group of 44 people or whatever the.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to be here next week, Will, you can be the recorder. Is that all right?
Well, I have a little suggestion. Next week, I know within Zoom, you can do polls. And you can put up questions that says, okay, do you have this, that, or the other thing, or check boxes or something? We could we could try collecting the information that way. That might be a interesting Zoom exercise.
There is a yes and a no box on the bottom of my screen.
Yep.
Under reactions in our case.
But there's also a Zoom polls that if you're
Yes,
one of the,
David, is that we're using APCUG's Zoom account. And I don't know if they give us access to setting up polls because they have to be set up ahead of time for the specific meeting.
okay, well,
And I don't think they do.
okay, well, if you could find out for us at least for next week, and we can do it verbally, and Will can take pencil notes if need be.
Yeah, I think verbally and a video recording is good.
Hey, I've got a couple questions before we close up. On my cell phone, people say we can't leave a message because your voicemail is full. Is there a way to erase all of the voicemails? I find I have to do it one at a time, but there should be a way to say erase all of them. Anybody know how to do that in an Android?
I think
Okay.
it depends on your vendor for your telephone system as opposed to the Android stuff, because
Okay.
they're sort of under control of that.
There's
However, as they'd say, call
611. Yeah.
611 and ask them how to do it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, second question though. I have in the lower right-hand corner of my screen keeps popping up a 4x2 window that says Daily Mail. And I can't figure out, I can delete each one that comes up, but I'd like to just say, hey, get the hell out of here. I don't want to see you anymore. Any idea how you do that?
So is that a notification you're getting?
Mm-hmm.
It probably is. Can you turn off notifications?
Yes, you can turn them off selectively. Usually, when you open up the notifications things, there'll be a place to click on to say, silence these notifications. But you have to get a new one in order before you can silence it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it didn't work.
Hey. Hank, you're muted.
I think I'm locked out. No, I'm there. All right. Hey, have a Merry Christmas, folks.
I see somebody screen sharing.
That was Hank, and he was just showing that the APCUG account apparently does offer the ability to set up polls.
Okay, just a minute now. I got dumped in the middle of trying to do that, so that's why it went so badly. Okay. Now I'm sharing again. And what I want to ask